Welcome to OTP, on the podium with your host, Mark Gerdrum. His guest today holds a bachelor's in music education from the University of New Mexico and a master's in music education from Kent State University. He serves with the 44th Army Band and is a director of the Tucumcari High School band program. Welcome, Paul Gibson. And now, OTP.
And we're glad to have you, Paul. How you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well. And thank you so much for coming aboard and being on the podium today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You are a New Mexican native, right?
Yeah, born in Albuquerque. Went to Grant Middle School and Sandia High School, and then University of New Mexico.
Great. Well, we're glad to see you moving right along. Let's start with your first memory of playing music. Did your parents play music? What's that about?
Oh, so my parents didn't. My dad said he played flute in middle school, but that was long before I was a thought. This is a funny one. My first actual memory is actually as probably a preschool or kindergartner. It must have been preschool, like in 1989, 1990, sitting behind the La Cueva drum line at a football game with my little toy drum,
Wow.
playing along with them. So if there's any former La Cueva drumline members, I thank them for inspiring me. And that was one of the things that I really like to do is listen to that marching band. But really, I think my first memory of actually playing music would be when I was 9. I started taking piano lessons, and my brother and sister took piano lessons at the same time as me. I have a younger brother and sister. I was the only one who actually stuck with it, though. I don't remember how far into the lessons. I took lessons until middle school, but at some point early on, I came across the Star Wars theme sheet music, and I really wanted to play that. I took it to my piano teacher, and she said, "Oh, it's too difficult at the moment," and I learned it pretty much out of spite, just to prove that I could learn it. So I learned that over all of my other etudes and exercises I was actually supposed to be doing. But that was probably one of the first memories I have of playing music, was learning the Star Wars theme song on piano.
I asked that question because there's always a beginning. It's part of our journey, and it lights the flame, and it gets us going and moving forward. So as you went forward into middle school, how did you get into wanting to play the sax and going forward there?
Yeah, so I started at Grant in 7th grade, and I got recruited for the jazz band, and I played the keys. And
I happen to remember that.
Yeah. I don't know if I was any good, but I played the keys, and then I remember looking at the saxophone section and thinking, that sounds really cool. I like that instrument. And so the next year in 8th grade, I was somewhat of a late bloomer in the band world, but I started in 8th grade on saxophone and beginning band, mostly because of my experience with the jazz band, seeing the saxophone section.
Right. And what type of music back then, if not now, would you say, drew you in, that you really loved to listen to and wanted to play?
Well, I think probably back then it would have been the movie themes.
Still the movie themes.
Yeah, those soundtracks, the Star Wars on piano, and I remember getting a book for saxophone and playing some of the movie themes I was probably the Titanic theme.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I remember playing that in after school in the band room.
Right.
But yeah, it was probably all that popular music, and then later on in high school, I started gaining more of an appreciation for the band repertoire.
Right.
I think my senior year we played Ghost Train by Eric Whitacre, and that was a really cool piece of music. And then of course the Holst suites; those
Right.
are all really great and have a place in my heart for those things.
Yeah. And yeah, I when you said that, even though I'm a little older than you, but for me that was West Side Story. I remember us doing that in high school. So you went on to what high school? Sandia, did you say?
Sandia, yes.
Right. And let's do a plug for your director. Who did you have over there?
So the head director was Stuart Fessinger, and Tyler
Uh,
North was the assistant.
yeah.
I think he came in my sophomore year as the assistant, but he
Mhm,
was, yeah, he conducted the concert band.
mhm.
So I was in the concert band until my senior year.
You know, one of the purposes of this talk on this podcast is to talk to also listeners that didn't have the typical traditional school band experience. Was there any time that you felt you wanted to quit band? Usually there's that transition between middle school and high school, and then in high school. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, for sure. I remember wanting to quit saxophone several times.
Shame on you.
Well, one of them, yes, shame on me. I didn't like the taste of the reeds. I don't know what it was, but it took me probably 2 years to get used to that. But that was one of the things that made me want to quit saxophone. But then the other one was in high school. I wanted to be in the wind ensemble my junior year, and the only open spot in the wind ensemble was a percussion spot, and so
Ah,
I I debated trying my hand there, and
right.
that didn't happen. But yeah, I would have dropped saxophone for that.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's kind of a opposite effect that happened to me. And at Grambling, at my freshman year, I dropped percussion and went to sax. So I can understand the thinking process there. So now we've got you in high school. You're still enjoying music, loving music. And now there's a choice for you to make as you're going to college. Uh, did you decide? It's kind of interesting because I was um, talking to John Sanks a couple of episodes ago, and he had decided he wanted to be a band director, in junior high school, if not earlier. Where were you in your mind at that point coming out of high school, and as far as your music?
Coming out of high school, it wasn't my plan to go into music education. I
Mhm.
knew my senior year in high school was definitely a pivotal time in my musical life, and
Mhm.
I think it had a lot to do with the music that we played and the direction of Mr. Fessinger and Mr. North.
Mhm.
Um, that was the pivotal moment where I thought I want to have music as a part of my life, but
Right.
I didn't know yet that I wanted to be a music educator. I actually started in college as a business major my first
Yeah.
semester, and then um, yeah, it was the marching band in college that really I that community just got me,
Okay.
and switched over my second semester with
Oh, cool.
in that marching band, and I thought the music world was more friendly than the business world.
maybe less lucrative.
Less lucrative, less cutthroat though.
Yeah, true. Good point. Good point. Now let's go on to your sax playing at that time. How were you feeling about your playing? Um, what type of music did you like playing on your sax at that time?
Going into college, I really didn't have any experience with solo saxophone repertoire.
Hmm.
And I remember the first semester of lessons that I took were really different. I had taken some lessons in high school, but they were more to learn to help me out with the band repertoire that we were playing in high school, not so
Hmm.
much to learn all the scales and all the
Yeah.
etudes that I
Yeah.
learned, and so that was another eye-opening moment, just to see how much I could push myself, or how much I could be pushed
Sure.
in those lessons. And yeah, I studied with Eric Lau at UNM, and he really um, he was a really good teacher,
Hmm.
and I think he pushed me to my limits, whether I
God
wanted
bless
to or
him.
not. And yeah,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that was an interesting first
That's
semester, and then just it
right.
I gained a lot of skills and
Right.
everything there.
Right. Right. There you go. Um, you know, at that point in your life playing the music, you had already decided that you wanted to go into the realm of music education, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Uh, and so now, as a music educator, um, that how do you feel about the transfer of getting this thing we call music from the player to the audience, and Lord knows, how do you get your students to understand what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that if you haven't experienced it or done it, it's really hard to understand it.
Sure.
And it was in my last year at UNM at Allstate. I think one of the last years they did an intercollegiate honor band.
uh,
Um, the keynote, I don't remember what it was. Jeff Jolly.
oh,
So
yeah.
I'm stealing his words, and I when he said these, I wrote them down, and
uh,
um, I I put them up in Santa Rosa when I taught there, and my
uh,
kids here. So he said, he was talking about what kind of responsibility we have as musicians, and
right.
what what an awesome responsibility it is. So his exact words were, "We are the keepers of the connective tissue of community. We're the liberators of human potential and the human spirit, and we are the conveyors of culture." And I just
uh,
thought, wow, that's just it's
that's
amazing,
deep.
and it's
That's
very
deep.
profound.
Yeah, that's too
So
deep for me.
it's deep,
Yeah.
and so over the years I've tried to make it more accessible for
Sure.
high schoolers. And so it was probably 5 or 6 years ago I decided my bands would have a creed, so to speak,
Sure.
and that one basically explains our responsibility to each other as musicians, to
Right.
to be our to be the best we can for each other,
Sure.
our responsibility to the audience, and then our
Right.
responsibility to the composer to
Right.
to play the music that the composer has written to the best of our ability.
Uh, Excellent point there. In these talks, all the musicians are saying the same thing and connecting with the audience. Also, you alluded to this, the audience responsibility to be receptive to the music and during that whole experience.
Hmm.
And while you're playing, whatever it may be, It could be heavy metal. I don't know if they still have such a thing. Or, but, John, going back to John Sank's conversation we had, was that, seeing the connection with the audience, whether it's the clapping or tapping their foot. And my son, Jared, that was playing over in Japan, one of the things he mentioned about that was, how the culture in Japan is so different than in the States as far as audiences are concerned, and how they'll sit quietly and listen to the music. And if you're not used to that, you might think, I don't know if they like what we're doing, kind of thing. But,
Right.
That responsibility of the audience as well. Now, let me take you into, you went to Kent State.
Yes.
And how was your experience there?
It was really interesting. That was about 10 years ago. And so it was completely online. And I think those types of programs were just getting going. There weren't a lot of them. And I really enjoyed it. The classes were great. The instructors were great. And really the whole experience was, for online, it was I connected with other students throughout the country, and I was able to, we were able to share ideas. And
Sure.
Now that everything's so connected, it's not a huge deal. But
Right.
10 years ago, I don't think
You were in the dark ages.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And did you do obviously a lot of playing during that time?
Not for my degree. Yeah, that was just music education, in instrumental music, and choral music education was my focus there.
There you go. And so you left there and talk about moving into your music life as an educator at the different schools here in New Mexico. Where did you go?
So my first job was in Santa Rosa, and I was the only music educator in the city. I taught 5th through 12th grade band.
Wow.
Yeah, the 5th grade, it was required for them. So I had all the 5th graders, which was both good and bad. It was good because I got them all, but bad because some of them didn't want to be there.
Yeah, because you got them all.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Some would say that was the ideal situation. You're born, you're bringing them along, and you reap your benefits and go from there.
I did enjoy that. I liked the fact that I had control from beginning to high school.
Right.
But then I couldn't blame anybody for how they turned out. So, but no, during that time, they were struggling with retaining band directors. I think I was the 3rd or 4th band director they had in the 2 or 3 years prior to me. And so I was there for a couple years. I started a marching band. I brought in a crew to run band camp the week before during my second year there. And that was another one of those things where if you've never done it before, it's hard to explain the final result. I remember my drum majors, I sent them to the drum major camp, and they came back and they were all excited because they had been with other drum majors throughout the country. And the band was really confused when they got their first set onto the field. They were really confused, and the drum majors were like, just trust us. This looks cool. Just trust us.
Right.
And they did it. They marched a show and didn't compete or anything, but they did it. They marched a show. Sure. It was good.
Yeah. That's so important, especially for the kids and high school kids, to have that student leadership, and I'm sure that those experiences will last a lifetime with the students that are now older, and it makes you feel old.
Oh
But
yeah,
yeah, that is great. Now, how long did you stay at Santa Rosa?
2 years, and then I moved to Tucumcari.
Uh-huh. There you go. Now, you also play in the 44th Army Band. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I joined the Army band because I moved out to these small towns where there's
Mhm.
not a huge opportunity to play with
Right.
other musicians.
Sure.
And when I moved to Tucumcari, I missed playing,
Yeah.
and I saw the 44th Army Band performing at All State. It would have been 2012, the
Right.
2012 All State. They were performing, and I knew several of them, so I went to
Mm.
college with them and went up and asked them, "How do you do this?"
Yeah.
And I auditioned the next day and was
Great.
shipping
Yeah.
off to basic training that summer.
How do you like that? That is really, for someone that you had a choice, whether you knew it or not,
Yes.
you could have just twiddled your thumbs and
Hmm.
said, I'll just stay out here in Tucumcari and Santa Rosa, and my musical life will be this. But you chose to take it a step further,
Hmm.
and more than that, of course, to serve your country as well as, I mean, a big step to go to boot camp. that's no that's no easy task in itself.
Yeah.
S- yeah. So um, thank you for your service, number one. And so you've been playing with them how long?
10 years. I'm coming up on
Great.
10 years in February.
And you still love it, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best job
Yeah.
in the military for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
we get
Exactly.
we get to we get to play instruments and
Right.
go
And
to
get
all the
get a
concerts.
little bit of money for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have here a clip for you. You can set it up. Um, you remember this clip that I'm going to be playing? Do you know where it is, or should I play
You,
it first?
you can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll play it. And here we go. Now, where is that being taken place?
So this was our first actual in-person tour after COVID. And this is the uh, part of the 44th Army Band called Breaking Brass. We're a brass band.
Okay.
We were playing round one Youngblood,
Uh-huh.
and so we recorded that in Las Cruces, and it was like I said, it was the first in-person tour. So a lot of our shows were either canceled um, or just weren't
Right.
they weren't publicized well, and so we had an opportunity to record in in a hall with a professional
Mhm.
sound engineer, and
Mhm.
just to get some publicity type video and audio for our
Sure.
future events, and so
Yeah.
that was a piece of that.
Um, we are talking to Paul Gibson, band director at Tucumcari High School, and so you have been playing there for a while. But when I saw this clip, Paul, I was a little perplexed and a little irritated because you're on trumpet.
I am, yeah. That's an interesting story. So the brass band, that brass band, we started probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I I don't remember why I didn't play saxophone, like saxophone parts in it, but I
Mhm.
I think we had too many saxophone players in the band, itself. And
Go
so I
figure.
volunteered. Yeah, I volunteered to play the second trumpet part on soprano saxophone. And after a few rehearsals, I was like, this is dumb. I'm going to just learn trumpet.
Yeah.
And and so over the next 5 or 6 years, I've been practicing trumpet probably more than I practice saxophone.
Yeah.
But I've gotten okay at holding down a second trumpet part in the brass band, and so that's the story there.
That's a nice lead into picking up an instrument and continue to play. Talk a little bit to the audience and our listeners. For those that have stopped playing their instrument, maybe, and thought maybe it's a different part of my life. Why should I put music back in my life?
It's a constant learning thing. I always tell my students, you'll never master it. There's always something new to learn. There's,
Right.
You're never going to get to a point where like, oh, I've done everything I can and I'm,
Right.
Put it away and quit.
Right.
There's always something new to learn. And if you've stopped that, it's never too late to pick it back up and
Right.
pick up where you left off. If you've never picked up an instrument, it's never too late to pick up one and learn it.
Mhm.
So, learning something later in life, it can be harder, but it's never too late to
Right.
learn something new.
Exactly. And the feeling and also the benefits of exercising your mind, all of that goes in, and even just listening to the music if you can't physically do it anymore, how it feels. And so we want to thank you so much for taking the time. Before we let you go, talk about your future. What are your plans on your music in your life?
So like I said, I'm picking up trumpet. I picked up trumpet a few years ago and learned it, and
Mhm.
certainly gonna continue trying to get better at that as much as I can. Lately, I've been singing with the Amarillo Symphony in the choir with them, and
Cool.
we actually just had a concert a couple days ago. It was their
Mhm.
Christmas Pops concert, and then they're going to be doing Carmina Burana in March. So I'm going to
Great.
plan on trying to do that with them, singing with the choir there. And yeah, like I said before, unless you've actually been a part of it, it's really hard to explain it. But
Right.
I'm always in awe of when I'm a part of a group like that. It's always crazy to
Mhm.
me how amazing it is just to be a part of
Right.
a group or an ensemble. And
Yeah.
um
And having the music around you.
yeah, just being a part of making that music. And I don't know if I've just gotten good enough to where I can be around and be a part of the really good musicians. And
Right.
that's the thing that always gets me, is how
Right.
awesome it is.
There you go. There you go. Well, look, thank you so much. You're actually right now, when this podcast publishes, it will be in the second semester. So do you want to say anything to your future self in the spring?
Well, I hopefully my beginning band will not go we won't go crazy in the spring, so that's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
keep on them.
That's it. That's it. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, Paul. You taking the time to be on the podium,
Absolutely, thank you.
and we wish you the best. Our listeners, for listening to the podcast, and we hope you're getting something out of this. Pick up an instrument, keep listening to music, playing music, and let's get out there and play all the right notes.
You've been listening to The Podium. If you would like to be a guest on The Podium, email the show at onthe2@gmail.com. That's ONTHEPODIUMTOO @gmail.com.